Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks to you and Ranking Member Crapo for this hearing. And Madam Secretary, thank you so much for being here. Secretary Yellen, I wanted to ask you about a barrier that American businesses face in working to outcompete their counterparts in China. Currently, when a Chinese company invests $1 million in R&D, the Chinese government gives them an immediate $2 million tax deduction. By contrast, when an American business invests $1 million in R&D, our tax code provides an immediate $100,000 tax deduction. How does this unlevel playing field harm our efforts to outcompete China?
Well, that certainly creates an unlevel playing field, and it is something that I think harms American businesses in comparison with China. I think the Wyden-Smith legislation would help correct that. It restores the incentives to engage in R&D by restoring that tax incentive, as well as doing a lot of other good things, including the child tax credit. And it pays for those things in ways that essentially enable us to address a fraud and scam that is now serving, not to help, but actually to harm small businesses.
Well, thank you. I certainly agree. We need to restore the full R&D deduction in our tax code to better level the playing field with China, to support investments in innovative products and create jobs here at home. So I'm really hopeful that the Senate will come together as soon as possible to pass the pending bipartisan tax package, the Wyden-Smith package, which would restore R&D deduction and cut taxes for hardworking families. There's also strong bipartisan support for making homeownership affordable by expanding the low-income housing tax credit, which is also part of the bipartisan tax package that we were just talking about. Another bipartisan effort I'm working on with Senator Tillis would cut taxes for families who purchase a home with mortgage insurance because they can't afford the full 20% down payment. Specifically, the bill would restore and expand the tax deduction that these families can take for their mortgage insurance payments. Secretary Yellen, how can providing tax cuts to home buyers and expanding programs like the low-income housing tax credit make homeownership more affordable?
Well, you know that there's a huge shortage of affordable housing, and the proposals that you've described would help to address what's been a very long-standing problem. And I think they're important in making sure that that rents, especially for lower income individuals, are affordable. LIHTC currently is the biggest support we have for housing, affordable housing. And, you know, we would be happy to work with you also on the mortgage insurance proposal.
I appreciate that very much. Last question. I want to talk a little bit about supporting retirement plans for employees who work for small businesses. Currently, small businesses can get a tax cut to help cover the cost of starting a retirement plan for their employees. It's worth $250 per employee. Due to this structure, the smallest businesses with only a few employees get a very small tax credit that doesn't fully cover the costs of starting a retirement plan, because regardless of how many employees you have, there's still a basic overhead for starting up the plan. I'm working on a bipartisan bill with Senator Budd that would address this issue by ensuring that the smallest businesses get a tax cut of at least $2,500 to cover retirement plan startup costs. Madam Secretary, how can tax cuts for small businesses help increase access to retirement plans for their workers?
Well, I think it's critically important that American workers have access to retirement plans so that they can look forward to a secure retirement. And clearly, U.S. tax policy has been designed to promote those ends. And so if the smallest businesses face disproportionate costs, it makes sense that a proposal like the one you just mentioned could promote that goal.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And we also know that small businesses women and especially women in vulnerable and marginalized communities are often going in and out of the workforce in small businesses. So this is a way, too, to really address some of the coverage gaps. So I'd look forward on working with you and your team on that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Senator.
Mr.
The
Chair.
time my colleagues has expired. I just appreciate her constantly coming back to the research and development effort, which you have consistently made bipartisan and done so for years. So very much appreciate your leadership. Next.